Good morning, you guys. Today is another day of conversations with allieetoile, and we have an amazingly special guest joining us today, the lovely Miss Hannah Bettis. So, as soon as she gets on here, we will begin. How's everyone doing today?
Hello?
There she
Hey.
is. Hey,
Hey.
how are you?
Good. Yeah, doing well. Took me a second to figure out how to ask my question.
No, all good, all good. No, well, welcome to Conversations with allieetoile. This is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, I like it. It's kind of cool.
I feel like a wannabe Ellen DeGeneres, but that's okay. Um, well, anyways, for those of you who are watching, joining us now, I want to introduce our lovely guest today, the lovely Miss Hannah Bettis, and I will give her the floor for a minute to let her talk about herself, how wonderful she is, how much I adore her, and I'm sure as many of you guys who are watching this right now, I'm sure you adore her as well. So, Hannah, the floor is yours.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm Hannah Bettis. I used to be a professional ballet dancer. I grew up doing all kinds of competitions and Prix de Lausanne, YGP, World Ballet Competitions, some different IBCs, and then went to the Royal Ballet School and then danced professionally with Boston Ballet. So
Amazing.
yeah, and I recently retired. I keep saying retired, kind of air quotes, but yeah, about a year ago now. So yeah, and now I teach, kind of figuring out what to do next. So, yeah.
Well, we are beyond, I mean, speaking on behalf of myself, I am beyond happy to have you be part of this series, which is still in its infancy, but so far it has been, I mean, to everyone who has wrote in comments, questions, everything, you guys are absolutely amazing. So I'm happy to be able to share this all with you, and of course have Hannah's expertise on this as well.
Yeah,
So
part of it.
I wanted to start, let me see, oh goodness, I'm not very tech savvy, but I wanted to start off with a couple of the Q&As that so many people sent in previously, and then of course we can talk a little bit more conversationally on some of those topics. And of course, for those who are watching live, feel free to write in any comments, questions that you guys may have for myself or Hannah, and we would love to discuss that with you throughout this hour. So the first question is basically, what are you doing to get through this time? And this goes on a human level here. Ballet dancer, former ballet dancer, whatever. What are you doing right now? How are you coping? And how is
Yeah.
what's your outlook on the situation right now with coronavirus?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like definitely a strange time. Like no one would have like I would have never thought this could actually happen. But yeah, I mean, right now it's different because obviously like I've been teaching dance, so everything's kind of been switched to online learning, a lot of like Zoom meetings and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So it's been interesting figuring out how to like continue teaching, but
Sure.
not being in person, especially yeah, that's been interesting. And then I have two roommates, but they both live. So I'm in Austin, and I have two roommates, and they both are from Austin. They went in quarantine with their families, so I'm kind of home alone, which I actually really enjoy. It's giving me time
Okay.
to like kind of. I've been watching too many movies. I mean, I've been holding on to hope that we'll be done in a couple weeks, and just taking this time to really like focus on myself and kind of recalibrate and just see sort of what I should be focusing on. I
Of
think.
course, of
Yeah.
course. No, that's so important. And especially at a time like this where, again, dancer or not, we are
Yeah.
all facing, you know, a different change, our
Yeah.
structured life is not really happening right now. And of course, our day-to-day routine is certainly affected by this all. So being able to tap into yourself and just figure out what you need, because this is a time where we can be a little bit selfish and identify, what do we need to work on? What are we
Yeah.
feeling? Which this is what this series is all about, is just discussing the mental side of not only how coronavirus is affecting us, but especially with your background within the ballet world, how it affects us as artists and as people.
Yeah.
So this kind of tags into a couple other questions that were sent in, which was, where do you draw, when you were dancing? Obviously, you had a very, very decorated career with competitions, your professional repertoire, it goes without saying that you've had some amazing, amazing successes, some of which people would only dream about having. And so where did you draw your strength and resilience from, especially in situations of adversity where it was either a mental block or a physical block? And what helped you get through that, especially because, I, for one, have always been a huge fan, a huge supporter of you. So I was watching Prix de Lausanne, I was watching you perform live and seeing, oh my gosh, how is she doing this well? It looks like she's got no stress whatsoever.
Yeah, I think for me, I always loved performing, so I actually felt less stressed performing than I did rehearsing. um, but yeah, I feel like during times of that, like, I mean, I always had a lot of amazing people around me. I think like a support system is super, super important, and like having good relationships with the people around you, and just staying humble and like being open to receiving anything that they might have to say. Like, I found for me, I think the biggest thing that helped me through my adversity was my community and
Sure.
my friends, my family. Yeah. So,
That's
yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful. And so, what advice would you give? Because you had mentioned, performing was your comfortable place, your safe place where you felt good. What advice would you give to those young dancers or other professionals who are feeling the opposite of that, where they're
Yeah.
fine in the studio and then when they get on stage, it's just they're hit with this overwhelming sense of,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
I think it's important to remember. So one of my favorite Shakespeare quotes is "Things done well and with care exempt themselves of fear," and I think that that's such an important thing to hold on to. Is that we rehearse so much as dancers, and it's so important to remember that like you've rehearsed for it, you can do it, you've done it correctly more times than you've done it wrong, and just like remembering it's not going to be that different when you finally get on stage. It's exactly the same as what you prepared for, and don't let like the lights and things throw you. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful, wonderful advice. So, I wanted to, let's see, there were some really amazing, amazing questions, but some of them were derived actually from parents who had reached out to me,
Okay.
and who had questions about, they have a child, they have someone in their life who is a young student or someone who is right on the edge of wanting to become a professional dancer. And obviously, we're in a time where everything is kind of put on hold. What advice would you give to those students who are in a place of uncertainty about, will I be able to keep training? Will I be able to get a job? Because this is definitely something where, you know, our careers, especially being a ballet dancer, is on a timeline. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, I've just lost this amount of time off my career or this amount of time off my training. What would you advise them mentally, how they should be using this time and working?
Yeah. So this is something that I kind of learned after my career because I was very much the person who was like, I'm running out of time. I have to do everything now. Like everything's gonna be awful. Like if I don't keep working and keep through. And I think I've realized now, it's been a year since I've been away from it. Now I'm realizing like how much time we actually have. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not you like that extra pressure of being like I'm getting old is not necessary. Like we have all the time in the world, and especially with today's medicine and like PTs and stuff. I mean, dancers are lasting into their 40s. Like it's not as pressing as I think previously.
Yeah.
So I think during this time, it's important to remember that this like bout of corona is temporary. Like it's not going to last forever, and like I mean, it'll definitely have lasting effects. But I think keep persevering, keep pushing through, and just like rest easy knowing that it's going to be fine. We're all going to be on the other end. Like there still will be dance companies. There's still going to be ballet companies. Just keep
Yeah.
training if there wasn't this little bit of time off. And I mean, make the most of this time off. Maybe it's like a good time to think about other things and to find your identity in something other than dance. So I think be encouraged that there is time and that um, there's no pressure. I think the time pressure is such a big lie. Like I don't think it's actually as important as we us always feel it is.
That's amazing. Yeah. So someone actually just sent in a question, and I'm going to read that out for everyone. Someone had said, what is the biggest satisfaction you look forward to in your career? So obviously, Hannah is now in a place where she enjoyed an amazing career, and she's also pursuing her other interests and passions right now. So if you want to maybe tag into that, obviously, how did that apply to you when you were dancing, and how does it apply to you now with your current studies?
Yeah. sorry, it was the satisfaction. You draw your satisfaction for your
Yeah,
career.
what is the biggest satisfaction you look forward to in your career?
Yeah. I mean, well, whenever I was dancing, obviously it was to be a principal dancer, to do principal roles. And then like as I started to receive those and get to do those things, I realized that like as much as I love getting those parts, it wasn't actually something that was as rewarding as I hoped. And
Mm-hmm.
that was me personally. And I think that that's something now is that like I don't try to look forward and be like, oh, later the satisfaction is going to come. I think I learned through that like hope deferred makes the heart sick. That's like one of my favorite things to say because it's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to have hope in today and be satisfied with where you're at now and not look forward to something that might not ever happen. I mean, hopefully it does, but remember, like, I don't know, I think that you should find satisfaction in your day-to-day life, and if you don't, then you need to find out why you're not satisfied in your day-to-day life, because if you're not satisfied day to day, there's no way that reward is going to feel satisfying when you get it.
And it's very interesting you mentioned that because Catherine and I briefly touched on this yesterday
You
about
froze.
oh, am I there?
You
Is the
froze.
connection okay?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, if you guys watching right now, if there's any connectivity issues or if you guys can't hear something, please let me know and I can try to fix that for us. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Catherine and I touched on this briefly and we talked about how while ballet is a very consuming career, it's not 100% of our identity. I'm Allie the ballerina, you were Hannah the ballerina, but that doesn't really matter if you're not okay with being Allie the person, Hannah the person. It's the full circle. What you do in your everyday life is what's going to continue to contribute, make or break your career on stage and in a studio. So I think that's just really interesting that you were talking about how satisfying and having the satisfaction of what you do sometimes, is or isn't always the make or breaking point. So another thing I wanted to talk about is obviously, you have a lot of fans, myself included. Can you talk a little bit about, because this is something very, I think, neglected in the ballet community today, mental health with dancers. We are so disciplined. We train for so many years. We're put in these really high stress situations. How has that affected or how has that played into your decision to deciding to leave ballet? And of course, what have you learned through your career with mental health and mental well-being in dancers?
Yeah. So yeah, so this is a really interesting question, just because I think that my mental health as a dancer was awful. Like I neglected it for sure, and I developed really unhealthy coping mechanisms to cope with stress and like the pressure that I was feeling from the people around me. And I think I now value mental health above everything else. Like I think that that was something that really did lead to me wanting to walk away from my career, was because I had so much going on in myself that I couldn't work on or get rid of in the environment I was in at the ballet. But it wasn't because of ballet. I mean, it wasn't because of Boston Ballet. Like Boston Ballet is an amazing company, so don't hear what I'm not saying. Like it's an amazing company, and the people were very supportive and kind. But I think I had a lot of things in myself that I needed to address on and heal. So yeah, I think mental health is a huge. I mean, people should put more value on mental health than they do, especially in ballet. I mean, we stare at ourselves 12 hours a day in the mirror. Like, that can't be good for anyone.
Who does that, right?
There's like no other career that I can think of that does that. So,
No, I mean, it is. The nature of what we do is so, it's so critical and it's oftentimes very insensitive to people. And especially, we're, I mean, girls, boys, but I think girls in particularly, as you go through this training, you're also growing as a person, going through
yeah.
puberty, growing up, and like when you're putting
Yeah.
yourself in such extreme, what's the word I'm looking for? You're putting such an immense amount of pressure and an expectation on yourself, and
Yeah.
then life is happening. It's hard to cope. I mean, it really, really is. And so for those dancers at home, someone wrote in, and I thought that this was a really, really great question, is basically and I think we briefly touched on this, but you've competed and won at numerous competitions. What advice can you share about the mental preparation, and how would you compare it to the physical preparation? And honestly, when you were at that age where you were involved in competitions and even joining Boston Ballet, how did that play a role into your everyday life? Was it more of the mental component? Was it more of the physical component? And what was what was the line there?
Yeah, I think I definitely it's hard because it's like now being away from it in retrospect, like there's so much I would do different. So that's why I'm trying to figure out if I should say like what was help, like what I did, or what I now think would be helpful that I should have done.
Both. Honestly, I think that it's something now because you have such a unique perspective of living, breathing, having that career, and then also being from the other side of it now looking back.
Yeah. So I think at the time, like what I did do, I mean, I think one good thing that I did was a lot of visualization. So like before rehearsals, like visualizing, trying to do things. So I spent a lot of time in that way mentally preparing, but I didn't actually spend a lot of time like figuring out like why I felt a certain way about something or what I should have done differently to avoid that like disappointment in myself and stuff like that. Like I think I would have put more on like my mindset. I should have had a better mindset going into things. Um, but yeah, I think that now preparation wise, I still think visualization is a great way to prepare for performance because you can do that mentally and physically. And then like obviously there's so much physical aspect. Like I spend so much time physically preparing for roles and physically preparing for everything. I mean, you rehearse all day and then you do like ice. Like I at least did like ice baths and like all kinds. I was always in the PT room and I was always like getting something looked at or fixed or I don't know, doing all kinds of exercises. So yeah,
Absolutely. And it's interesting, especially at a time like this where a lot of us are not able to do the physical component.
yeah,
Visualization is an amazing thing that people can definitely,
powerful.
it's a tool, it's a use that people can use to get through this time, whether it's for their career or for themselves personally. I think it's important to talk about the fact that since this is such an unknown, when are we going to go back to work, school,
Yeah,
life, all these different things? And so being able to keep an open mindset through this whole process, I think that that is a wonderful tool to be able to share with people.
yeah.
Um, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't have
Oh
any.
no, I don't want to cut you off. I'm watching the computer screen on my website. It's just like do 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 do. People are sending in all these amazing questions. So oh, okay, this is kind of fun. A little bit off topic, but they want to know, how do we know each other? How did we
Oh
meet? All
yeah,
that. So that's kind of cool. Thanks, guys.
yeah,
Something a little bit lighter than all this like depressing, like the world has this many more cases of coronavirus and blah blah blah.
yeah. Oh man, we go way back. We've known each
We
other for a long time.
Someone called on the other side. Sorry, guys. I forgot to put this on airplane mode. Um. Anyway, Hannah, I don't know. Do you want to start this one?
Yeah. Okay. So we went to like Jose Carreño festivals in Sarasota, and was that how we actually met? Because we were like how
Patel.
old? Oh,
Patel.
Patel was
Wasn't
the
it
first time.
Patel? Patel Conservatory, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Jose Carreño first. We were young. I
Was
think
it?
I was like 13, 14.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we were.
We were
It
young.
had to be. I think I was just turning 13 because when I first moved back to Florida, I was 12, and I think I met you like
Yeah,
that year. So, yeah. No, Hannah,
yeah, like 14, 15. I know. We know. We go way back.
both Florida girls. That's
Florida.
fun. Go Team Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, throughout the years, I've had the privilege of knowing Hannah not only on a professional level, but on a personal level. And she has been always someone who I have looked up to and idolized simply because she is just a beautiful, beautiful dancer and a beautiful, beautiful soul. So it's amazing, regardless of where our lives and our careers take us, to be able to maintain those connections and be able to talk to each other and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing, decompress a little bit. So I think that that's definitely, it's a really unique thing that we share. And at a time like this, I encourage you all because, and this is something that I really noticed as well, and maybe Hannah, you noticed this as well. Whether you're in a studio, just being next to someone at bar, or I'm sure you with your classmates, you're studying right now, just having someone physically around you it makes me really appreciate the people who I'm surrounded with on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis because they are so wonderful. You know, it's inspiring, it's uplifting, and of course, you know, you're able to feed off of that, you know, human
Yeah.
connection. I'm thankful I made it out of England. I'm home with my family right now, but it does. I feel like there's a small piece of that that's missing. I don't know if you're experiencing that because I know that you're heavily involved in school right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I do miss my community. I do miss my dance community. It's so different because I realize that like in the real world you have to make more of an effort to have real friendships. But in dance you're kind of just given like a whole 70 people to do life with. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that like I took advantage of. So I do. It's really nice to still have like you and some of my other like dance friends and
No,
yeah, I'm really grateful for it. I
no,
am.
absolutely. I mean, let's see. It's a really it's a special thing. I mean, one thing that I've learned and I'm still learning through this ballet career is just how tight knit and how small the ballet industry was. And Hannah, maybe this is something you can comment on, you know, now that you have finished from the stage, you know, how has that affected you on a day-to-day basis with your life? You know, what do you miss it? What do you does your body feel differently now that you're not dancing? You know, are you dealing with things that, you know, oh, maybe I woke up every morning and had this with my hip, whatever. What is it like, you know, for those, and especially, I know that there are many, many dancers in the world who are in a place of uncertainty with their careers and even with their training, you know, maybe it's getting to a point where it is very, very difficult or there's a lot of unknowns and they're unsure about whether they should continue this pursuit or if they should decide to do something different.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, so I do miss performing sometimes. I do miss that aspect of it. Some of the stuff I don't miss is like, yeah, the body aches. Like my body feels fine now. I don't wake up with like my feet throbbing or swollen and like my joints don't feel horrible. I mean, still everything in my body cracks, but I don't have the same sort of issues. And then it's been nice to be like a normal person. Like obviously since quitting, I've put on weight and I'm normal. And it's kind of been nice to like have that. I feel like ballet can be really unforgiving when it comes to body image and body weight. So it's been nice to have that freedom to be a person.
Yeah, no,
uh,
that's nice. That's good. That's good. I think
yeah,
oftentimes ballet dancers forget about the human side of things because this isn't a career that's just a 9 to 5 and then we go home. It's a lifestyle.
it is a
And, you know,
lifestyle.
Catherine and I were talking about this yesterday, how when you're at ballet, you're there, obviously. And then when you go home, what you're doing at home is going to affect you tomorrow at work.
Yeah,
So it's a very unique type of lifestyle that we choose to put ourselves
yeah,
into. And it's interesting also because, at least for me, I didn't really feel like it was a choice. It just kind of happened.
yeah,
I don't know if it's the same for you. It was just something, you know, ballet started out as a passion and I loved it. And I started to be kind of okay at it. And then somehow along the lines, I just kept going with it. And then it kind of manifested into, okay, I'm doing this on a high level now. I guess the next progression is to try and do it professionally. Well, how was that for you?
I think for me it was similar. I think that this is something that I like to remind all dancers is that it is a choice. You do have a choice. But I think that especially when you're in the training process, it can start to feel like it's an obligation to your talent. Like you have to keep going because everyone around you keeps telling you like how talented you are, how good you are. And I mean, ballet is something that like you can't fall in love with, but like for me personally, I had such a love-hate relationship with it. It was like everything that I loved and everything I hated. Like,
Really?
yeah.
What
And
were
I,
some of those things that were on the love list and on the hate list?
yeah, like everything I loved, part of me, like, okay, so I really did love dancing. Like, I loved dancing. I loved learning how to dance. I loved performing. Performing was like the reason I did anything. I was like, I want to be on stage. That's what I want to do. And I love the idea that you can actually create art with your body. Like, I was like, you can make someone feel something and it can actually literally come from within and
Mm-hmm.
move someone. And that was something that I loved about ballet. some of the things that I hated the discipline. I hated it. Like I also have a little bit, like, I'm a little more impulsive. And so like having to come in every day and do the exact same thing drove me crazy. Like it wasn't something, I mean, it was super good for me because I learned how to persevere and how to work hard. And I think it was something
Sure.
that like my personality type actually needed to be taught. um, so I'm grateful for it, but it was something that I really did struggle with. Like doing the same thing every day was something that really started to get to me after a while. I'm like, oh, I can't do the same thing every day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely, there's a lot of redundancy with ballet, and it's
Yeah.
part of our training. It's
And it's
methodical.
necessary. Like you
Yeah,
have to. Like there's like that's something that like we have choice. We have the choice of whether or not we want to pursue it and do it. But like when it comes to ballet, you got to do bar. Like you have, if you choose ballet, the class comes with it, and you got to do it every day. Like there's not really a way around it.
as much as you mentioned that disciplinary factor was not your cup of tea per se, how would you say that that prepared you for life after your ballet career?
Yeah. So I mean, it's actually I've realized how necessary structure is in day to day life. Like it's so easy to not have a structured life. Like I see it in people that like friends of mine that I'm really close with. I see it all the time. People talk about how like easy it is that they just like quit their job every 2 weeks and kind of get a new one and do stuff like that. And I could never. Like I just I'm like, once I do it, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna do it, finish it, like
Huh.
to the end, see it through. But that's something that you learn from ballet, and I think that that's actually a trait that in the world you don't see as often as you would think. Because I kind of had this mindset that everyone was like that. Everyone had to persevere. Everyone had really strong character. I realized that like ballet really refines your character and gives you that structure, discipline, and like the components that are necessary for like a purposeful life. So
Yeah, no, of course, of course. So somebody just wrote in, and I wanted to talk about this because this is kind of in relation to what we were just discussing. I am a ballet student and I want to be a professional ballet dancer, but I have so many other things in my life that I'm interested in. How can I do it all? Is it possible?
I think yes. I mean, so
I mean,
I
I
mean,
have to agree. I have to agree. I think honestly that if you put your mind to it, there's the only thing standing in your way is yourself. It's a mental, it's a choice to be able to dedicate yourself to something. And so I don't
yeah,
know, Hannah, what do you think?
yeah, no, I agree. I think you can do it all. I think that it is harder. Like it's not going to be easy. It's not like, oh, I'm able to do everything just because I want to. It's going to have to be something you work at, but it's definitely possible, and I think it's healthy.
Healthy, definitely for sure. Um, Gosh, I mean, everyone watching right now, because I have this going on my Instagram and linked into my website and all this, so it's just like
Okay.
I'm trying to keep up with everything. So if I don't get to everyone's questions, I'm so sorry. You guys clearly love Hannah as much as I do. Um, let's see. Okay, so when you were dancing, what was the best part of being a professional? What was your least favorite part of being a professional? And what advice can you give to someone who is about to make that leap from student to professional? So,
Okay.
favorite part, worst part, and advice for being student to pro.
Um, I think the best part is that there was freedom in it. Like there's a lot more freedom in being professional. I mean, and I mean, you get to wear whatever you want. You get to kind of choose how hard you want to work. I mean, everyone should always work hard, but it is when you get to a professional atmosphere, it's more of a choice whether or not you want to push. And I mean, training, obviously, it's like you feel like it's not. You're like, I have to train hard and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, keep going. And yeah, so that was kind of my favorite part about the freedom in it is that there was freedom in it. That's the best part about being a professional. And then I think the worst part was, I mean, Boston Ballet is a very um, work ethic driven company. So I think what was the hardest thing was that even in class, we were expected to perform and like push to the front. And it was a very competitive environment. And I
Mm-hmm.
was very over competing when I first joined the company. And I was like, I don't want to compete anymore. Like, I'm tired. I'm just, I don't want to push my way to the front. If you want to look at me, you can look at me. But I'm going to hang out in the back. So I think that that was something that for me to overcome and realize that there are different kinds of company environments. I know that there are plenty of companies out there that don't function like that. And I mean that there are plenty of companies that do. So I think that was something that I didn't expect. Yeah.
Sure. What would you say? So that was obviously kind of like the best part and the interesting, not so great part. And then advice to someone who is right on the cusp of transitioning from student to professional. What are the things that you don't learn from your trainers? What are the things that you, as much as we prepare for this, as much as we dedicate our lives to this moment, what are the
Yeah.
things that nothing can prepare you for that you might be able to prepare our viewers with?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I always had like a coach. I always had someone like a mentor or someone like that. And I think that when you enter into a professional environment, you don't have that anymore. Like it's really just you. Like you have yourself and the people around you. And I think that that's something it can feel isolating and make you
Mm-hmm.
question like why you pursued it in the first place. Because it's so easy to have someone telling you, like if you have a coach or a mentor being like, you're amazing, you can do it, always encouraging you, or I mean, and sometimes not encouraging you, but there's always that person there pushing you. And to suddenly not have anything there, it makes you question, like, why did I pursue this? Why am I doing this? It's just so hard. And I think that that's something to be prepared for. And before you go into the environment, start thinking about, why am I doing this? It can't just be and it can't even just be for yourself. You can't just be doing it for yourself. And it can't just be for the people around you either. There has to be like a driving purpose in your work that like is what sustains you.
No,
So
that's amazing. It definitely is. I mean, I've heard it before from people saying you've got to do this for you, but there were times when I would be wondering, okay,
yeah.
I'm not in a good headspace, so I don't want to do it. Why should I go in, So
Yeah.
that's such a valid point. Thank you for that. No, I want to just take a minute to acknowledge this is probably the favorite question of the day for me. Someone says, "Do you still have Archie feet?"
I do draw archy.
I think it goes without saying Hannah is one of those dancers that is known across the world for just having some of the most unbelievably gorgeous feet. I think that's hilarious. I mean, I would just always look at
Archy feet.
pictures and watching you dance, I'd be like, how is she doing this right now? I mean, oh gosh, talk about what you want to look like. It's you. So that was a really cute question. Thank you for sending that in. Um,
Uh,
let's see. Okay, this is kind of interesting because you had such flexibility. I'm assuming this is with your feet, but also I know you personally, and I know that you are. And this is actually something that we both have, I believe, Ehlers Danlos Syndrome.
yeah.
So I, first of all,
The
I
whole
think it's
hypermobility disorder.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
this could be a really interesting topic. Um, we obviously need to tell our audience what this is, and then what does it look like. So I'll let Hannah, again, you're my guest, so
Okay.
I'll let you do all the talking, and I'll just enjoy it.
Yeah. So I mean, this could be wrong, but this is what I think this is correct. So Ehlers-Danlos
Sure.
is like a hypermobility disorder. So like things dislocate easy. You have like super loose joints, hyperextension, all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, in my professional career, I probably dislocated my shoulder like upwards of 6 times. Um,
Same.
and I tore a muscle in my hip. I was always like throwing things out. And I mean, a lot of times the PTs thought it was because of my Ehlers-Danlos. And I mean, I had to get my ankle mobed almost every day because it would get stuck in like pointed position. So they had to like,
Mhm.
what is it, the talus bone? So I had to get it like put back in place like every day, probably like 2, 3 times a day, just because it would slip and I couldn't, and it would be hard to like walk and be uncomfortable and I get shin splints and stuff. And
Yeah. No, absolutely.
yeah,
That's funny because that's like I'm on board with you there. Yeah, I mean, from my knowledge, and the best way I can describe it too, if we want a more scientific approach, is it's of course what Hannah said, like a hypermobility disorder. And what it affects is the connective tissue within
yeah,
your body. There's 13 different variations of this, ranging from life-threatening to
there's
just
some
being.
crazy,
Oh, I know.
yeah,
There's
it's really
there's
bad.
there's some really interesting types. That's what it's called. Different types of Ehlers. But I think for the most part, Hannah and I just have yay, we're flexible. That's kind of fun, and we just have to learn how to use our bodies a little bit differently. I had to learn, and I took this more, especially when I was at Houston Ballet, I had the ability to really learn and research what was going on with my body because it wasn't until I really began professional training that I
Yeah.
knew that I had this. You know, when I was younger, it was just always doctors saying, she's a ballet dancer, she's young, she's flexible, like it's fine. And as I got older and I learned the science, like the science part of it, it was okay, when I'm using my muscles, it's not the same as everyone else. I'm relying on my intrinsic muscles. I'm looking at my body in a way differently. And so to tie this into general public, all dancers around, our bodies are our tool. And what advice and what can you share with someone? Obviously, we're going through our own individual independent struggles. For some people, it might be turnout. For some people, it might be jumping, you know, muscle tone, whatever those individual things that we need to address in our lives for ballet. What advice can you share for how to really identify what we need to work on and also celebrate those strengths and those gifts, you know, yours being, for example, your feet. I mean,
Yeah.
amongst everything. I mean, let's just be real here. Hannah's got it head to toe, you guys. So she's one of those rare, you know, unicorn type creatures out there. But
Unicorn. That's funny. Yeah. I think, yeah, the best advice I can give, I mean, for me specifically, like stuff that I had to like be really like diligent about was strengthening and strength exercises and that kind of stuff, because I was dislocating things every 5 minutes. So I had to get strong, and I think it helped me a lot to work directly with my PTs. Like I had a very close relationship with my physios. So anything to do with like your body and like the care of it, like if you have a PT and you have access to a PT, like take advantage of it. Um, and I think that's something that as a dancer, I didn't put as much emphasis on. And it was something that everyone says, but I really didn't. I was like, yeah, whatever, is nutrition. I mean, I think everyone talks about nutrition. Everyone says it's important. It's this, it's that. You should do this or that or whatever. And I think that's still in my own mind. I was like, I know better. Like, I can do this or I can do that. I mean, I can, and it's just not true. You can't. You have to know what's going into your body, because yeah, your body is your tool. It's it's literally your canvas. So it's so important to take care of it and to make sure that's fueled correctly and properly. And that way your muscles can function accordingly and the blood flow can be better and all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of my advice, like.
absolutely. And it's interesting. This is another question that just got sent in as we're talking about this body types with ballet. There are some companies and some schools in the world who have a type,
Yeah.
you know, tall, shorter, you know, someone who is more of a romantic type dancer, someone who's like a, you know, powerhouse technician type thing. How do you go about, you know, I guess what they're asking is, how do you know what company or school is right for you? Um, I'm thinking of this, you know, obviously there's different styles within the ballet world. You have more Balanchine type training. You have Vaganova, which is like the Russian technique. I was personally Cuban trained, and I had the ability to explore others, but that was the primary one for me. Um, there's a big world, and obviously along with that, you know, there's different ideas for what you need to look like and how you need to move. So choosing what type of school or what type of company to join, I think it just comes down to what kind of rep you want to dance. What would you have to think about, Hannah?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I had very mixed training. I mean, I had Russian teachers, I had Cuban teachers. I trained at Royal, so it's more, I guess, I think it's like English, Bournonville. Like and then I had Balanchine teachers. And then whenever I got into a company, like Boston Ballet is a very mixed company. And so was, it was interesting. And I think that all that training really did prepare me well for there, because we were constantly going back between like doing like really romantic, like Les Sylphides, and then we would go into like a mixed Balanchine program. And then we would go to Forsyth, and then it would be
Sure.
like Killian. And so it was very,
You guys were all over the place.
we were all over the place. So we never got to be comfortable in anything we were doing. We were always like flailing, trying to figure out how to adjust and still be good.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think when it comes to training and companies, I mean, it's just being honest with yourself. Like, and it's also realizing that like all these different styles, they're all beautiful in their own right. Like, it's not better to be Balanchine, it's not better to be Russian, and it's not better to be Bournonville, and it's not better to be contemporary. I think it's important to remember as a dancer to just evaluate yourself and say, what is it that I actually enjoy doing? What is it that I want to do? What am I suited for? And getting perspective on that, obviously, from people above you and authority figures that can help you with that decision.
Of course, guide
People
you.
around you will guide you. Because I mean, I could assess myself all day long. I wanted to be whenever I was younger, like a super Russian ballerina, and I was like, I'm 5'3". I'm just never gonna be Russian. Like, it's just not gonna work for me. And so it was good that I had the guidance I did to be like, here, let's go this direction because this is more suited for you. And in
Yeah.
the end, I mean, it all worked out the way it was supposed to. So.
So someone just wrote in here as well. Um, this is very valid as well. So basically they want to know if you have a particular style that you're more interested in or that you've been trained in, but then you are in a company or in a school that's very different than that. Should we be adjusting our mindset? Should we be trying to move a different way, or should we stay true to who we are? Or is there a happy medium? Is there a difference between what we can do in school and in company life?
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe you should change. I mean, I think you should submit with their authority, honor the person who's asking you to change your style. I mean, the good thing is if you've trained a certain way, it'll come back easy. It's not like it's going to disappear into thin air and like all your training goes down the drain, which can be how dancers feel. Um, but the reality is like your training never leaves you. You can change a couple things and not be destroyed, or all of a sudden like you're never gonna be able to do the other style again. And it's really important to be able to switch back and forth between things. It's super important, and it actually makes you like a more attractive dancer to people who are coming into ballets if you're able to adjust instantly. I mean, it's a great skill to have, so I think you should change if the teacher asks you to.
Absolutely. And would you say for your personal experience,
Yeah.
when you finally got into a company, how do you choose? How do you identify what works best for you? Is it acceptable to do kind of a combination of both, or, what do
Yeah.
you approach your dancing with now because you had the training of so many different types of instructors and school systems. So what really helped you choose what was best for you?
I think I don't know if I ever really. I mean, I spent my whole 5 years dancing professionally, kind of figuring it out. I think. I mean, I definitely got better, and it was easier for me to adjust to and from the more I practiced that. I mean, there are definitely things that I enjoyed a lot more. Like I loved Forsyth. I loved working with Forsyth. I loved his ballets. Like it was something that was very natural for me. Like
Mhm.
Forsyth felt natural for me. So that was something that I really enjoyed. Balanchine was hard. Like I struggled so much. Any Balanchine ballet that we did, it was a struggle for me. It was a struggle. Um, but it was something that like I mean, that's the other thing though about Boston Ballet. So that company specifically, they will cast you in the things you're bad at so that you're forced to get better. They will not give you something that they think is going to suit you. At least in my experience, like anything that I'd be like, oh, that I would look good doing that. They'd be like, you're absolutely not doing that. It's like they're like, we're going to give you like the whole variation with all the hops on point because you can't hop. And I was like, oh, okay. So I mean, I think that that's a little different. So there was no like typecasting. I think
Okay.
a lot of companies, especially in Europe, at least this is again opinion, could be wrong. But I've noticed that more companies in Europe typecast their dancers. Like once you're a certain role, you get cast every time as that kind of person or that kind of dancer or
Sure.
kind of something. And that was not Boston Ballet is a little different, I think, when it comes to typecasting.
No, that's a really unique point that you bring up because it's very easy to label yourself as, oh, I'm an adagio dancer or I'm this, fill in the blank. I know personally when I was growing up, I always labeled myself as one thing. And then when I was forced to do, I don't want to say forced because
Yeah.
when I had an opportunity to do something different, it was just like, I really shouldn't be doing this. This is not my strong suit. Let me do something that I know is going to look better on me.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned very quickly that oftentimes in this career, your opportunity is going to be when you least expect it and doing something that you never thought you'd be doing.
Yeah. Yep.
I
I
don't know. I don't know if that's true for you, Hannah, but I mean,
know.
definitely there's I'm a firm believer that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that definitely plays a role into our careers within this ballet industry because you never know at any moment. For me, I've had some moments where it's just been like, okay, it's happening. You're going to do this right now. And you're just like hit with this wall of emotions of, oh my goodness, can I do this?
Yeah.
Is it going to look good? Is it going to work out? And I think that that definitely plays into the mental aspect of everything that you've talked about so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. Someone wrote in and wants to know, this is a little bit slightly off topic, but what are you doing now? And what is down the road? What can we see next from Hannah Bettis?
Oh, that's funny.
What
Yeah.
are you working towards now that you have just, that you're not dancing? Because I know that a lot of people on here know you from being such a celebrated ballet dancer. So, what can you tell them about what you're doing now and what your future goals are?
Yeah. I think, I mean, right now, I mean, it's been just like a year of, I think like rest and like healing and like addressing things in myself that needed to be untangled and taken care of. Um, I mean, a huge part of the reason why I left was like I came to Jesus and kind of like gave my life to God, and that was a huge component. I didn't grow up in the church, so I didn't. It's not like my family was big into Jesus or anything. But yeah, so I think that that's also what gave me the courage to walk away from it and to seek my identity in something else. I mean, I didn't realize how much of who I thought I was wrapped up in ballet,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean something that's so interesting about ballet is that like if you accept the praises of men, you'll also accept their criticism, and that's something that you're a sponge in the studio. And I didn't realize how much I had absorbed that wasn't true and was like kind of a lie about who I was.
Correct.
um, and so I think, yeah, this past year has been just kind of spent with me figuring out like, who am I really, what do I want for my life, who do I want to be, how do I want people when they meet me to be moved, or what do I want people to see? Because like what I see right now isn't really something I like. So it's been a year of me just kind of addressing that and realizing that like I am loved, I'm beautiful, like I'm a daughter, I'm a woman of integrity. Like it's stuff like that that I didn't previously know that I was. And I mean like physically, I mean I've been teaching a lot of dance just because it's something that's easy and natural for me.
Of
Um,
course.
I haven't actually, so I took a lot of college classes when I was at Boston Ballet, but I haven't pursued academics again yet. I'm wanting to, but I'm still kind of figuring it out. And I still miss dance all the time. So I'm like, maybe it's not a totally closed door, but
Okay, yeah, that's which is interesting because someone just wrote in, do you think you'll ever dance again, whether it's professional or not?
yeah, I mean, I still think for me now, when I go in the studio, um, I mean, I didn't realize how much I blamed on ballet and how much I thought that like I hated myself because of ballet. And like none of that's true. Like dance is beautiful and like it's okay to feel beautiful when you do it. You don't have to feel bad about feeling good.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I miss it. I do miss it. Not be completely transparent. I might. I mean, it would require a lot at this point for me to like get back to the in like the shape that I would need to be to pursue it again. But I mean, it's not impossible. I just turned 24, so it's not like I'm super old or anything either.
Which is another thing, because lovely Hannah just had a birthday, I want to wish her happy belated
Yeah.
birthday from
Thanks.
the Conversations with Allieetoile team, which is really just myself and my editor. But in any event,
Thanks, guys.
this has been so lovely having you here, and I'm hoping that for those watching on Instagram, my website, would eventually on YouTube when this is back up here again, this is something that I'm hoping everyone's able to take something away from, and especially from someone who we've all seen through the years achieve really, really amazing success at a young age, and you're still continuing to do that, and you're doing it with such grace and integrity. So I personally, you're an inspiration to me. I'm happy to have you here. And honestly, Hannah, I think it goes without saying that there's a lot of people who would just be like, "Oh my gosh, I love her," which I do. So I'm so happy that you were able to join us today. I know that we didn't get through all of the questions because they are just, my screen is just like constantly, it's amazing. So potentially I will be having Hannah back on here for another time if you guys want that, which I know I do. But yeah, I want to thank Hannah so much for being able to give her all of her wisdom today. And it's just been so wonderful having you on this series.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy, and yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to wish everyone who's out there watching this right now, Hannah, to you and your loved ones as well, stay safe, stay healthy at
Yeah,
this time, and thank you for being able to provide us with all a little bit of a smile and positivity and some really interesting things to think about today.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Well, for
Yeah,
those who are still watching, make sure you tune in to my Instagram and my allieetoile.com website for more details, more dates, and a complete list of my next guests who are going to be joining us. Thank you so much, Hannah, and we will see you guys next time.
bye.
Bye.